Hi boys and girls, it's Miss Rossi. Today we are going to be making some Japanese cherry blossom paintings. Let's get started. What you will be needing today is a piece of paper, a pencil. I'm going to use a Sharpie, but you can use any kind of permanent marker you have to trace over your picture. You can even use a crayon or an oil pastel, that will work fine. I have two paintbrushes here because today I'm going to use some watercolors and some regular paints to color in my picture. But if you don't have paints to color in your picture, you can use whatever art supply you have at home to add some color. Whether you want to use markers, crayons, or colored pencils, anything will work. Today we're going to be making some Japanese cherry blossom tree branches. Now the Japanese cherry blossom is a very important flower in Japan. The Japanese cherry blossom is a symbolic flower of the spring. That means that it represents springtime. Now, something special about the cherry blossom flower is that it only blooms for a short period of time. It represents this feeling of renewal, and people celebrate it by welcoming its beauty every spring. So these trees are only in bloom for a short period of time. So while they are in bloom, people celebrate by having parties underneath them, by getting together with friends, and enjoying their beauty for the short amount of time that they last. So we're going to draw a branch on our paper today, and we're going to paint some cherry blossom flowers on it. I'm going to start with my pencil, and you can have your branch coming from wherever you would like on your paper. You can have it coming down from a corner, you can have it going up, you can have it coming in from one of the sides. It's up to you. I think I'm going to have mine coming down from this corner, so I'm going to start with my pencil, and I'm just going to create a nice long line to be the main part of my cherry blossom branch. And I'm going to bring that almost across the entire paper. Now I'm going to make that end a little pointy, and I'm going to follow that line back. I let it get a little bit bigger as I got towards the edge of my paper. So right here it is the widest, and all the way at our end it is the skinniest point. From here I can add extra branches. When you're making branches, you're just doing the same thing. So I'm just going to make another line. I'm going to create a point at the end, and I'm going to bring that line back, making it a little bit wider as I go. And I can make even more branches coming off of these branches. So I can make little branches coming off, and even smaller ones coming off of there. So I'm going to do this all along my paper. Each set of branches, each pair of two branches is almost like a Y shape. So you can think like you're making multiple different little Ys coming off of your initial branch, and that's going to give you a nice tree-like effect. So the next thing I want to do is either trace my branch or fill in my background. For my background today, I'm going to use some watercolor paints. If you want to watercolor your background and you don't have a permanent marker, like a Sharpie at home, you can do your branch with a black crayon, and that will work because it will resist our watercolors. Or you can watercolor your background first and then use whatever kind of marker you have at home and trace over your branch afterwards. Since I'm using a permanent marker to trace over my branch, I can do it before I add my watercolor, and it's not going to spread out or bleed like a non-permanent marker would if I started to watercolor around it. But if you have a crayon, you can use a crayon and do the same thing I'm doing with my Sharpie, and it will resist your watercolor, so you won't have to worry about your branch getting all messed up. So I'm just going to trace over all of my branch lines that I drew, and then I'm going to fill them in with my Sharpie, so my entire branch is nice and dark and black. Now that I finished tracing over my branch with my permanent marker, I'm going to erase my pencil lines that I can still see, and I am going to watercolor my background before I do my flowers. I'm going to do my flowers last because I will be using some wet paint on those, and it will be able to rest right on top of my branches. Now, if you want to do your flowers using something like crayon or colored pencil, you can do that before we do our watercolors because your watercolors will not cover over that. Or if you want to wait until we're done, you can do that also. So I'm going to watercolor my background. And on my background today, I'm going to pick whether I want to use warm or cool colors. So in our last project, we talked about our warm colors being our reds, oranges, and yellows, and pinks. And our cool colors being our greens, our blues, and our purples. I think on the background of my cherry blossom tree, I want it to be nighttime. So I'm going to use more blues, greens, and purples to fill in my background. But you can pick whichever one you would like, whether you want more of a sunrise or sunset kind of background, or if you want a nighttime background with your darker, cooler colors, it's up to you. So I'm just going to fill in my background, letting my cool colors blend together. And once that is finished, I will go in with my paints and add my cherry blossom flowers. If you want to add anything in your sky, like a sun or clouds, or if you want any birds in your sky, you can draw those in and fill them in with whatever art supply you would like. But I'm just going to do a nice abstract background where all my colors are blending together. Alright, so my background is mostly dry and I'm going to start painting on my flowers. I am just using a regular craft paint to paint my flowers on today. You can use whatever kind of paint you have at home. If you want to use markers or crayons, you can go right on top of our watercolor background with those and it should show up just fine. So I have a light pink and I have a dark red paint today. And I'm going to use both of them to make my Japanese cherry blossom flowers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double dip my paintbrush in both paints at once so I can let them blend together on my brush and on my paper. So I have my paintbrush in my pink paint. I'm going to give it a dip and a little bit of a swirl in my red. And I am just going to blot on my little cherry blossoms. So I'm going to do like 4 little dabs of paint on my branch. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to swirl around in my light pink, get a dab of red on there, and do the same thing where I'm just blotting my brush on my paper so all those colors can mix together to create my petals. You could do the opposite where you start with your dark color, get a little bit of your lighter color on there, and then just dab those on. And that will give you the same effect. If you have a lot of paint on your brush, you can go around a couple of times in a couple of different areas and add your petals. You can see whether your brush is a little too dark or too light and add that color paint to it until you get the colors that you like the most. I'm painting mostly in the sky, but I'm allowing some of my petals to touch my branches here as I'm adding them on my paper. But I'm just going to keep repeating this dabbing motion of painting with both of my colors. You can always go back in with certain colors and repaint over the top of some of them if you want to add a little bit more of one color. And if you would like any petals falling, You can just do little singular petals in your sky, going down towards the bottom of your page, and that could be a nice little touch. And that's going to be my cherry blossom painting all finished. And so we added our branch using different curvy lines that connected together to make Y shapes. Then we added warm or cool colors in the background, and that is up to you whether you wanted to do warm colors like red, orange, yellow, and pink, or if you wanted to do cool colors like blues, greens, and purples. And then we used a dabbing motion to double dip in 2 different colors of paint to add our flowers. Like I said, if you don't have all of these supplies at home, you can use whatever materials you have to add your flowers and to add color in the background. Yours does not have to look like mine. If you want to use crayons or markers to add your flowers, you can just swirl those different colors together on top of each other and make your petals that way, and it will work. When you're finished, be sure to take a picture of your project and share it with me on your Google Doc. I can't wait to see the amazing work that you guys create. I hope to see you soon. Try your best, have fun, and get creative. Bye!